Man, I really hope I don't regret making this video. Hey everyone, so as the start of my senior year approaches in the coming days, I've been looking back at my high school experience and reflecting on it. And although there were some really big accomplishments that I made during that time, I can't help but feel some regret. This video is gonna be a bit more informal, as even though I made a script that I'm reading off of right now, I might deviate from it at times to go on a tangent about something. With that out of the way, prepare to suffer with me as I regain imposter syndrome again from remembering this experience. Alright, so this first one is definitely the one that I feel the most regret over, and that is prioritizing my grades over many other more, some could say, important aspects of life, like friendships, happiness, sanity, fitness, and regulating my stress levels, but somehow not sleep. In fact, throughout my entire high school experience, I don't think I ever went one night with less than 5 hours of sleep. If you know me personally, you'll probably know that I care about my marks. Not as much as some others do, but I worry about them enough to put a lot of work into getting them as high as possible. Throughout high school, I definitely fell into the trap of tethering my self-worth and my identity to my grades. And you could probably guess what would have happened if I got a mark that wasn't up to my standard. That's right, complete mental breakdown. During this time of what I call percentage obsession, I was definitely not being that well-rounded of a student. There were often times where I would choose to not be with my friends so that I could go home and do homework or study, which led to feeling burnt out all the time. And that's a feeling that is definitely not one that you want to feel. I've learned that in order for me to keep my sanity during school, especially during really stressful times, I need to do two things. The first is to put things into perspective, and by that I mean telling myself that grades don't really define who I am. The second is to have a hobby or activity that can help alleviate the inevitable stresses of school. This hobby recently for me has been, you guessed it, making YouTube videos. I can prove this works because video creation helped me to get through one of, if not the most hectic weeks at school that I had this year. And I made a vlog about it, so go check it out if you haven't already up here. To summarize, I learned a bit too late that your grades do not equal who you are as a person. The second regret that I have with high school is not considering or acknowledging the inevitable applications that I'd need to complete early enough. This is mainly because since application season is coming up for me and many other seniors out there, I've noticed that I've been trying to cram in a lot more extracurriculars lately because I realized too late that I actually didn't have much to sell myself with. And COVID also hasn't helped because it made it really difficult to actually add stuff to my portfolio. I should have entered my freshman year of high school with more of a mindset that high school was the time to build my resume, because I didn't really start to consider this until the middle of my grade 10 year. Although I know that not everything has to be designated for an application, I think I should have at least acknowledged that I'd have to put something down on the paper and maybe considered more meaningful extracurriculars that I was dedicated to for the long term, because y'all know that the admissions boards like commitment. The next regret I have is one that I think a lot of students like myself have trouble with, and that is a failure to, as Socrates said, know thyself. And come to think of it, a lot of these regrets are ones that were intensified because of COVID. In grades 8 to 10, I never really took the time to get to know myself. Things like what I really liked and disliked, my strengths and weaknesses, my goals for the future, and what I really wanted to do with my life. These are all things that I never took the time to think deeply about until it was too late. And because I never got to know myself, this led to another regret that kind of stems off of this. I made a life plan dedicated to something that I realized too late that I didn't enjoy. So quick story time, I remember that before I started high school, I made a quote-unquote life plan to become a computer scientist who worked on artificial intelligence, mostly because all the media sources said that it would be the next most in-demand skill, and because I kind of felt like I should go into the tech space because it was cool. The first red flag that I should have seen was that I didn't really put all that much effort into researching these types of careers or doing extracurriculars that would progress me toward that goal. This was an early sign that this may not be for me. The next red flags came from the programming and tech courses that I took at my school, and although I did get pretty good marks in those classes, I never really felt any joy when doing these tasks, and I'd never spent any time outside of school to work on projects on my own. The final nail in the coffin was Computer Science 12, and that was when I fully realized that maybe a computer science future wasn't for me. Yes, I do know that it's not mandatory to know exactly what you're going to do for the rest of your life, but I think that if I recognized the red flags earlier by taking some more time to get to know myself, I would have had more time to try to find out what I really wanted to do, instead of just powering through until I got it done. The fourth regret that I have from high school consists of two parts that have to do with the extra stuff outside of my high school experience. I'm talking extracurriculars, sports, clubs, volunteering, you get it. And this is one of my bigger regrets, especially because it was amplified due to COVID. Part one of this regret was trying to do too much during grade 8 and grade 9. In these years, I was part of a lot of sports teams and groups, but I never felt like I was fully committed to any of them. This is a classic case of being a non-essentialist, a term coined by Greg McKeown in his book Essentialism. Non-essentialists believe that they can do it all, but in reality are just spreading themselves thin and stressing themselves out. Part two to this regret really hit me hard once the pandemic arrived, and it was that since I was being a non-essentialist with my extracurriculars and there wasn't really anything that I was fully committed to, I realized that I didn't really do enough. And this was clearly evident when I was trying to complete an application for a program that I wanted to volunteer for, and I realized like, oh crap, what do I put down? Thankfully, I've worked a lot these past few months to commit to the things that are most meaningful to me. But I would have saved myself a lot of hassle and time if I did this instead. I should have done the same thing in grades 8 and 9 by trying a lot of stuff but not that much stuff, and then narrowed it down in my more senior years to a few activities that I would be fully committed to. In other words, I should have been an essentialist. By the way, I do recommend you guys read Essentialism by Greg McKeown. It's a great book and it definitely applies to high school stuff. The final regret that I have has to do with the friends I've made along the way. And no, I'm not talking about the who for this one. I don't think I really met anyone really super toxic during my high school experience that I felt like I needed to disconnect from. I'm talking about the number of connections I made, or the lack of. Let's get one thing out of the way first. I am an introvert. Social situations have never really been my strong suit, and I always really need some solitude afterwards to recharge. This was definitely a problem during grade 8 and 9 when I didn't really know who anyone was. But I did end up making quite a few friends, but not as many as I would have liked, and didn't strengthen many of these as I would have liked as well. Although my social anxiety has lessened over the years, I can't help but regret that I should have gone into high school with the mindset that there's no such thing as too many friends. This would have helped me build social skills and would have taught me how to network, a skill that is quite useful in post-secondary, especially when trying to find internships or jobs. That being said, I'm still super grateful for all the amazing friends and people that I've met along the way. And life has taught me that there are some really good people out there in the world who deserve our trust. For example, all of you guys who watch my videos. You guys are the real heroes. And that about covers it. Wow, 1,800 words later in my Google Docs script, and I still feel a little regret after going through all this, but a sense of relief that it all happened. I honestly can't wait to see what will happen in my senior year and beyond that. As always, gently tap the like button, hit the subscribe button, and ring that notification bell to be notified whenever I release a new video. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.